My work is focused on green areas within my city and places I've lived before. So I'm really fascinated walking around and you find like a creek within the storm drain, and those trees are just holding onto the soil and growing no matter what. I'm very fascinated with those, along with parks, these pieces of nature that live within a lot of uh, people. So that's something I paint. I do a lot of trees. I do a lot of layering, but I paint a lot. I do a lot of mixed media. It all has to do with these metaphors I'm finding in nature. And lately they've gotten more about isolation and just kind of finding your roots. This little guy is my watercolor set. It has a little canteen and a little reservoir, and I go out and do plein air sketches. So that's how everything starts. I have these little and then I just have a little container of these ideas and sketches. Whoops, dropping them everywhere. But I do a whole bunch of these. I just go out there and I spend several hours sitting there looking at trees and nature, colors, patterns, bringing them back in the studio, and then I just fan them out and I figure out which ones I like. And then I start a whole bunch of minis, like you can see on the wall behind me. Everything's drying because I need a place to dry things. I don't have any surface space, so I put nails in my wall. I do a ton of little tiny trials, and then I do some big shaped ones. So like right now, I had a friend make these smaller shapes out of wood. So I'm able to test out a whole bunch of sketches from my little plein air watercolors, and then I start building the bigger frames. NYU had a summer residency, and while I was there, I had just come up with the idea of doing these architectural geometric shapes in grad school the semester before. And I got to New York, and all of a sudden I'm stuck with, I don't have any of the equipment to build the canvases, so I'm stuck with rectangular shapes again, which I was trying to get away. I was really interested in merging the geometric house shapes, like that everything is surrounded by, like all the nature is surrounded by house and building shapes, and I wanted to kind of merge the two. And so I started practicing while I was in New York on doing 3 a week tests, kind of like my little plein air sketches. So that's why I do these rectangular shapes still. I'm excited if I can get more of these, then I can kind of get rid of the rectangular shapes, but it's more of a study. Those are more studies, and then I can build the bigger shapes. But my whole hope is if I can have these bigger shapes, they merge both, this man-made with all the plants are around man-made objects. So that's my idea. But I've been making, trying to find ways of doing mixed media works, so it's not all about canvas, because I like they become an object instead of just being a window. So I've been working a lot with collage, especially with these little mixed media pieces. I have, I'll start out with layering effects, but I have some pieces of nature in here. You can't see it very well because of the lighting, but there's a piece of tree working around house and moon overall shapes. I like the idea. And I did this before this pandemic thing happened, is I had the idea. I was really obsessed with like the house shape, and then the moon for time, the house for home, and having how much time you spend at home, because I was really dealing with, working as much as I could and then spending time with my family. And then this happened, and I'm like, well, it takes such completely different meaning. So I had all of these canvases that are house shapes and all of these trial pieces of watercolor paper that are moon shapes, and now they have a completely different meaning than they did back in January. I've focused a lot more on social media. So I used to try to keep it regular, but now I'm using it to give more demos and try to connect my studio with the viewers. I feel like that's an opportunity since they're not able to come into my studio anymore. And so that's something I'll probably carry on, because I've already invested so much time figuring out how to best give my viewers a taste of the art in a different way. I take a lot of pictures when I'm doing the plein air sketches, trying to show them that as well. So I think it's forcing me to become a little bit more digital, and also a little bit more open about my own practices. So I'm interested how that's going to carry on. So far, it hasn't affected the actual work. I have some friends who've gotten really digital, like really digital, which is exciting. But I don't think that way. I think I'm a little too much tied into the actual materiality of things. Yeah, I've only been out of grad school for about a year. So for me, I'm still keeping up with all my friends who are finishing up and then we do a lot of back and forth. And so that was one thing I was really looking forward to, is having a studio space again at the Cedars Union that I could interact with people. I was a community member for a while, and that was great because as I was there, I was able to talk to people and we were able to brainstorm. I really feed off of that interaction of brainstorming with other artists, and keeping up a community. Well, first we'll have my constant companions, and I have some little mini trees in here because you've got to have that. But I've got a whole stash of I like discarded items. So these are my collection of items to be collaged. And this is kind of like my wet area. This is my, you can ignore that, but I've got a little tabletop area, and then I'm constantly cycling through. So when one thing is dry, I put it up over here. So simple nails on the wall. I have a whole bunch of older work that is not older, but I was starting in the fall, and it's waiting for a bigger space for right now. So finished things in the middle of things. Let's see. I've got my easel and all of my supplies. So that is my workspace in a nutshell. Thank you. This was great. I really appreciate it.